Hey guys, welcome to the channel. We are going to talk about the live action remake for How to Train Your Dragon. Now, I am going to start off with this. Let me get comfortable here. I'm going to start off by saying this. I am a really big fan of this franchise just in general. The animated movies are some of my absolute favorite animated movies that DreamWorks has ever done. Everything just down from the stories to just how the characters are executed. I mean, I just loved everything about it. I think that I said this maybe when I initially first saw these movies, that they had did a really good job making characters that were actually badass. I think there is a really big or a really bad habit that good guys always are kind of wimpy and dorky, and the bad guys get all of the cool stuff and they look awesome and the fun toys. And it's just been really cool to see a franchise that embraces the good guys looking awesome as well and just kind of being awesome. Hiccup and Toothless obviously leading the charge with that. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the live action remake. Me and this microphone aren't getting along right now. I will also come out flat out and say, I think when this film was first announced, I was not excited for it at all. I was super excited for Lilo and Stitch, but I was really worried that they were going to take something that I had loved for so many years and it was just going to fall victim to the live action craze that has been happening, right? You think of things like Lion King and whatnot that just really didn't need a live action remake, and then they tried it and it ended up being weird and wonky, and it's just then no one wants to talk about it. And I can really happily say that that didn't happen with How to Train Your Dragon. It is basically a shot-for-shot remake, and I think they did a really good job. I said it in my quick take, and I think all of their marketing has done a really good job basically telling you that this is a shot-for-shot. It is a retelling of the story. It's not a reimagining like what we saw happen with Lilo and Stitch. For more information on that, just go see the movie or go check out my reviews in regards to that movie. There was a couple of tweaks here and there. They had to add some things into the film for it to make sense in a live action place. You know, we saw more of the dads than I think what we saw in the original How to Train Your Dragon. Some of the fighting was a little bit different, but again, it was just this little nods, little things, right? They got rid of the crazy cat grandma lady and replaced her with is still like an elderly like village lady that kind of filled that role and still kind of did the same job, but she did it in a slightly different way. Again, it was these little things that never really took you out of what story you came there to watch, which made me really happy. I want to take a moment and talk about the characters that were animated. So let's talk about the dragons, right? Obviously, for a franchise like this that created dragons that had their own personalities about them that then matched up really well with these super iconic characters, they did a fantastic job making them look good without sacrificing the style of what these dragons were in the animated films, right? So obviously there's Toothless. Toothless looked awesome. He was dark, he was black, he had his big green eyes, he was still able to articulate a lot of emotions and a lot of his goofiness that we saw, his cat-likeness that we saw in the animated films, right? Then you look at the different other types of dragons. We look at what Astrid eventually ends up riding, the blue one, very spiky, and down to like even just how the fire was done. That particular type of dragon, it was always more sparks that seemed like was spitting out of its mouth, and they did a really good job doing that when there was moments of it breathing fire. There was the two-headed dragon. Again, it looked gorgeous, and the one head where the gas just kind of like falls out of it, it looked like it had weight to it. It looked like it had some oomph to that substance to kind of just ooze out, but it's still being very smoke-like, and then that leading into fire. They did a very good job, attention to detail on that. The Gronkle, right? The big tubby one with the little itty bitty wings, and it kind of like flies in circles because it's clumsy, like Fish Legs, who eventually ends up riding one of those, right? They did a good job. It was still scary in its own regards because it's a dragon and it's big and it wants to eat you, it wants to kill you. But it had a personality, even in live action. That translation there, they just did it so well. And I would hope so, right? That when you have a film that is predominantly focusing on dragons and different breeds of dragons and how these different things act and behave and so on and so forth like that it makes sense that you would pay that kind of attention to how they looked, how they act, and the fire mechanics in and of itself from an animator standpoint. I think they did a really, 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 really good job. So I'm really proud of DreamWorks for not letting that just be subpar, and for not letting that be something that just kind of was okay being well enough, especially when you have an actor who was playing Toothless that had to interact with this thing a lot, climb on his tail and fly with him and so on and so forth like that, and it never looked misplaced. They did a really good job with that. Speaking of the actors, let's go ahead and talk about these guys. Hiccup and Astrid, hands down, two of the most iconic characters that DreamWorks has made in a really long time, especially Hiccup, in representing a group of people that are handicapped, right? I mean, he lost a limb and he goes through that, and that becomes part of his character trait and his inventing mind, and he finds solutions to it. And then obviously Toothless as well, his own version of a handicap. So cool to see that represented. But the actor that portrayed, he's not as nasally as the original voice actor that did, but he still did the character really well. He still embodied his morals and still embodied who he wanted to be in life versus his dad and his whole, village of people in that Viking dragon killing lifestyle. He embodied that very, very well. The talk of the world when it comes to this film right now is Astrid, the Viking badass bitch of the movie, of the franchise, who Hiccup just has a massive crush on. She is kind of your quintessential, this is what you are supposed to be as a Viking, as a dragon hunter, so on and so forth like that. Long, blonde, luscious locks, the whole 9 yards. In this live action film, she is not blonde. And everyone hates it. They cannot stand it. And it didn't matter, y'all. Did not matter. This actress, I forget her name off the top of my head. I am a horrible human being for it because I'm just so jacked to be able to talk about this movie. She did that character so well. And I'm so proud of, again, her as an actress, and for the studio just making sure that this was embodied the way that it was, and the chemistry between Hiccup and between Astrid and the other kids, it was really, really, really well done. I think really the only gripe or the only knock that I'm going to have in terms of casting was the twins. Rough Nut, Tough Nut. They were supposed to be identical twins out of the animated franchise. And one just looked a little more feminine, one looked a little more masculine. And both were about as smart as a box of rocks. But it kind of added to, again, the personalities and to the charm of these characters. And I don't feel like they did a good job with that casting. The one of them fit the bill perfect. Skinny, kind of dopey looking, dopey acting. I mean, just very, very good job. But the sister was just not there. I didn't understand going that casting choice. I feel like you could have found identical twins that fit that bill. That from a casting perspective, that bothered me a lot. Gerard Butler did a great job reprising his role as Stoic. I was actually really worried because of the animation style of the original films that this was going to be a problem. A very tiny head, very big body, and just these grandiose gestures, and with all of the characters really. And Gerard Butler did it very, very well to see him come back and do that role. So that was really cool. The action in this film, y'all, was kind of intense. And I think it's because they did the live action so well. They didn't cartoon it too much. So when things were like happening and there was like action sequences, and specifically like the fight towards the end with the big dragon, there was moments in it where you could probably make the argument that it was almost a little scary. Not like scary, holy shit, don't bring your kids to it. But scary, like if I would have brought my 5-year-old to it, there probably would have been a part or two where she would have been like, what? But again, it's because they added that, they paid attention to that level of detail to take it from the animated world to the live action world and do it justice. This was not Sonic the Hedgehog up here, right? They were animated properly, but with a level of realism, and I can't keep stressing that enough, that they just did that transition so well. I think one of my favorite sequences, both in the animated films that they, again, did just so well translating into this main one, is when Hiccup and Toothless are learning to fly together. And it's the first time that they're both harnessed in. Toothless has the foot controls going on like a motorcycle, and he loses his cheat sheet. And it's kind of like the do or die moment for him and Toothless, because Toothless can't fly without him, and obviously he can't fly without Toothless. And he just says, F it, and he ditches the cheat sheet, he bucks up, and he just goes off instinct, and he's, going back and forth with the pedals, and Toothless is vibing with it, and he's vibing with it, and they just become one, and it's that man-beast, man-animal, whatever you want to call it, merging that happens, and to see them just zip in and out of the rock formations, and up and down, and over, and barrel rolls, and everything like that. It was such a cool sequence to see that in the animated film, because it was like, it's animated. And they did it in the live action one. They did it so well. Not to mention, I mentioned this when I had talked about Mission Impossible. The soundtrack they brought back in. It's the same soundtrack that we fell in love with the animated one, right? Not so much the score in the sense of like, these grandiose environments. This one was definitely the songs that just made you feel that moment. Those words that were being said, or those things that were being shown to you, like them flying or whatever the case was. There was something about the soundtrack that they accompanied in with these stories that just added to it and just gave you the little tickle in your chest, maybe made your eye twitch a little bit, maybe made you just just a little runny in the nose, a little sniffly. It made you feel something, and the live action did that really, really well. As a grown ass man, I was in there and I'm like, I'm feeling these emotions all over again with the live action one, same as I did with the animated one. So, guys, I cannot recommend that you go and see this film enough. I would argue, and I can think of a couple people that are probably going to message me and say, how dare I? But I would argue that if you were only going to spend money on one of the two most recent live action remakes, between Lilo and Stitch in theaters and between How to Train Your Dragon in theaters, I think I'd have to say between the two live action remakes that the How to Train Your Dragon takes the cake. Story execution, animation, just all of it. This one delivered. Nothing against Lilo and Stitch. I think they did a great job on that film, and again, I have my review and my quick take on that, and it was awesome. It was such a great film, so well done. I loved it. But How to Train Your Dragon just held a special, special spot in my heart, and to see them deliver it the way that they did just made me so happy and continues to make me happy. So anyway, I could go on about that for forever here, but I want to let you guys go. If you saw the movie, I want your opinion. What did you guys think? Throw it down in the comments. Give this video a like. It helps me out a ton. Hit subscribe to the channel for the next time that I throw a quick take or a full take out there. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into the video, and until next time, see ya.